Possible, not very, maybe in the offseason, but some other Falcon contracts could be on the move today. And then Will Fuller of the Texans is a receiver a lot of teams have been calling to ask about. Texans have a lot at receiver. Fuller and Kenny Stills in the final years of their contracts. We've heard the Packers connected with Fuller as an interested team, but the Texans are not looking just to dump him. They would need to be convinced that it was worth it in terms of the return they're getting to move on from Fuller, who has become Deshaun Watson's best receiver without DeAndre Hopkins there.
Well, I can tell you where you've heard the name Will Fuller connected to the Packers on a great radio show called #Greeny. I've been screaming for it for a week. Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams have been rolling this season, even after missing 2 games. Adams has more touchdowns than the rest of the Packer wideouts combined. Their receivers are also tied for the 3rd most drops in the NFL with 8. Adams has just 1. Again, they really have 1 star receiver and the most talented quarterback maybe in the history of the NFL to work with. And so Mike T, our general manager, joins the conversation today. And we've been talking so much, Mike, over the last week, really, I guess, going back to April, about what the Packers need to do. Today is the day. If you're sitting in the chair, what do the Green Bay Packers need to do today to turn their team into a Super Bowl team?
Greeny, you nailed it. They got to go get one of those Houston Texan receivers. Go get Kenny Stills. Go get Will Fuller. You already addressed the glaring need at wide receiver. If they want to close the gap on the Seattles and the NFC, they need to do that immediately. Look what Seattle did. They went out, they added 3 players, Jamal Adams, Carlos Dunlap, and Snack Harrison. They're trying to get better. And if you're saying that GMC, you're looking to your left, you're looking to your right, and you're saying, I got to keep up with them. I got to go out a receiver. And even if it costs a little bit more than you want, maybe a 3rd or 4th round pick, that's a small price to pay to keep yourself in the race all the way to the end.
Absolutely. So, Agu, the other problem in Green Bay, maybe even the bigger problem in Green Bay, is their defense. They get run on like crazy, and we saw it with Dalvin Cook this weekend. As you watch their defense, what specifically do they need to improve?
Their linebackers are bad, G, and they need to improve that and the interior of their line. And we thought they would get better with Clark coming back, but you saw last week when they played Minnesota that these linebackers just have no idea about fits and how to get the run stopped. And we saw Quan Alexander go to the New Orleans Saints, but I thought they should have been in play for a guy like that, even though he's had his injury history. They have the issues. Like, we talk about this offense and how prolific they are, and I really believe Green Bay wouldn't be in this situation had it not been for the injury to Lazard as far as needing a receiver, because he was starting to ascend and becoming a real playmaker for Aaron Rodgers. But I look on the defensive side of the ball, and you can have all of the offense in the world, but when people are running for over 200 on you and giving up 4 touchdowns to Dalvin Cook, you have no chance to win games anyway. We saw the same thing against Tampa. They were able to rack up run yards on Green Bay as well. So they need to address that too.
Tampa ran it down their throat. New Orleans ran it down their throat. And this week, Minnesota ran it down their throat. So we've seen Avery Williamson, Dan Graziano, traded in the last couple of days. Pretty good linebacker, Quan Alexander. Are there others out there? Do we have reason to believe the Packers are looking to upgrade there as well?
They are, but the thing you have to remember about the Packers is that they're the Packers, right? And so they're not interested necessarily in trading valuable draft picks for players that they're only going to have for a couple of months. Like, well, you mentioned Fuller on the offensive side of the ball. You know, this was a team that they were handing out stud receivers when you walked in the door of the draft this year, and the Packers said no thanks. I mean, like, they believe they have what they need at that position, whether we agree with them or not. So if you look at the Packers, I think they'll look around and see if they can get help at a reasonable price. But it is not a team that tends to bring in talent from the outside and add it. They like to draft, they like to develop, and they believe that they have what it takes to win. Could they make a move? Yes. Will they do it for a 1st or 2nd round pick? I think that would be shocking.
Is that the price? I mean, really quickly, Mike Tannenbaum, what is the price on Will Fuller? If you're setting the market on Will Fuller, what does it cost you to get him today?
Yeah, I agree with Dan. It's probably a 2nd round pick because Houston's not going to give him away. They don't have a 1st round pick, so they're going to try to win as many games this year as possible. I think Stills is closer to a 4th round pick, so it's a premium. And let's face it, Green Bay put themselves in this position. They have to pay a premium because at 4 o'clock, their window closes.
Yeah, exactly. And they sometimes behave like there is no urgency to try to win a championship when you have a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers. It's frustrating to watch. Meanwhile, let's go back over the course of last weekend to what was the most hyped game and the most interesting result. The Steelers beating the Ravens by 4 in Baltimore, so Pittsburgh stays unbeaten and has been the case for much of his career. Lamar Jackson, against good competition, really struggled. It was a game to forget for the reigning MVP. He had his worst numbers of the season across a number of categories, most turnovers, lowest total QBR in any regular season game of his young career. And I've been really looking forward, Jeff, Saturday, as I get you into the conversation here, to talking about this game. As you watch them, I guess I would ask you, do you feel like it is time to sort of write off the Ravens among the legitimate contenders in the AFC based on what you saw on Sunday?
Absolutely not. Exactly the opposite, in all honesty. I mean, listen, they took the Pittsburgh Steelers to task. 21 of 22 players beat the brakes off the Pittsburgh Steelers. 21 of 22, right? Lamar Jackson struggled, right? He turned it over 4 times. After the 4 turnovers, Greeny, they still had a chance to win the game in the last 10 seconds. That tells you something. The Steelers had 50 plays of offense. This offense dominated 256 yards rushing. They absolutely beat the brakes off the Steelers, who were lucky to be in the game. At the end of the day, if Lamar Jackson doesn't fumble it twice in the red zone, the interceptions live with them, right? Whatever it is, you're trying to get better. A linebacker drops off, makes a good play. But the whole idea that he can't win a big game. Hey, I played with a guy who everybody said couldn't win a big game. All of a sudden, he'll be first-round ballot Hall of Famer, right? The guy can play. He beat Tom Brady in 2 of 3 AFC Championship games. Let's not write off Lamar Jackson because he played bad on Sunday or has some bad games early. He's 23 years old, 24 years old? I think it's a ridiculous concept that we're even having that.
Yeah, the guy you're talking about, to be clear, is Peyton Manning, who was 0 for his first 3 in the playoffs. But Greg, it's fascinating, I think, that we put it that way. 21 of the 22 players on the Ravens played well enough to beat the Steelers. I don't disagree. But let's talk about the 22nd guy. Greg, what did you see from Lamar Jackson on Sunday?
Well, it's not a one-game sample size, though. That's the problem, Jeff, is that we have now seen Lamar Jackson against the top teams in the NFL. And let's eliminate the top, let's just say Kansas City and Pittsburgh, because those are the 2 teams he's going to have to get through to get to the Super Bowl. And guess what his record is as a starter against those 2 teams? He's 1-4. You realize he's got 7 touchdowns against 9 turnovers, and in the process against those 2 teams, he's taken 18 sacks. 18 sacks in 5 career matchups. And you mentioned that 1-4. You know who that 1 win was against? It was against a Mason Rudolph-led Pittsburgh Steelers team. Against everybody else, he torches them. And the guy's 23-1, unbelievable statistical productivity, both with touchdowns and with limiting turnovers and being explosive with his legs. But those teams can make him one-dimensional. And at this point, he has not proven to be multidimensional enough to beat the top teams in the league. So if their aspirations are Super Bowl, he's got to pick it up and play better against those top-quality opponents.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Okay,
Jeff.
let me ask you this. Let me ask you. So who has beat the Steelers this year? No one, right? They're undefeated. So who's walking up and down against the Steelers defense? Nobody. Everybody talks about the Chiefs are the best team in the league, right? So they skunked it against the Chiefs. Again, take the 2 fumbles away. I get it. He had it. But at the end of the day, this is Lamar Jackson gave them a chance to win as well. So like what you're saying, I get it. They're playing against good teams. He lost. He's 1-4. At the end of the day, they still had a chance to win if he doesn't get it.
Let me get Marcus in here. I got 45 seconds. Marcus, what is the right thing to say about what we saw from Lamar and what it means for their chances of winning a championship this way?
Lamar's below average against teams that he's going to need to beat to win a Super Bowl. That's what the results are right now. Now, I'm not saying he can't pick it up and get it going at a future date. But right now, based on what we see and what we understand they need to be in order to win a Super Bowl, and that's the context we're talking in. Everybody gets so sideways when they think you saying Lamar Jackson is a bad quarterback or he's not a guy that you can win with. That's not the point. The Ravens ran for over 200 yards and lost to the Steelers. Usually you're supposed to win those games, but your quarterback turned the ball over 4 times. Against Pittsburgh last year, he turned the ball over 3 times. Against the Chiefs, he turned the football over. When the pressure is being applied, you have to figure out a way to evolve this passing game. And we saw it. Like, it's not all Lamar. I don't think they have the weapons on the outside, and I don't think they are enough They don't have enough juice with their passing concepts to win these type of games.
I got to leave it there for the moment. We will come back to this, I promise. We're just getting started, and we are busy today. Coming up on Get Up, the Bears ditched Mitch for St. Nick. Was that a huge mistake? Should they switch it back? We're talking about it. And just the facts from Bill Belichick, who opens up about his team's struggles in a way we've never heard before. It's on the way. It's Get Up on ESPN.